Yeah, so before we start, generate the correct motivation as we go over basically separation of the 4 types of attachment, or the lamrim, so to say, right? Main topics of the lamrim. So before we start with the actual sessions, try to generate a motivation according to the lamrim. So try to generate a motivation for quick enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And in order to do that, we have to train in the stage of apart, and then today in relation with separation or parting from the 4 types of clinging or attachment, or adherence, it depends how you want to translate it. Yeah, so try to generate a motivation to do that in order to strive for full enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Yeah. And then imagine the front Sakyamuni Buddha surrounded by the masters of India, Tibet, particularly the 4 traditions of Tibet, and then surrounding yourself countless beings, and they are undergoing individual suffering. For that purpose, try to generate a wish to lead them, and then we start with leading them in the prayers. And so we recite the prayers together. To the founder, a down transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the complete, perfect, full awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sagata, know of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of God's human beings, to you the complete, fully awakened one, the down transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subdue from the Sakya clan, a prostrate make of the scope of to the founder, down transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, complete, perfect, full awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sagata, know of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of God's human beings, to you the complete, fully awakened one, the down transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subdue from the Sakya and the straight make open go for refuge. To the founder, down transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the complete, perfect, full awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sagata, know of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of God's human beings, to you the complete, fully awakened one, the down transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subdue from the Sakya, I prostrate make offerings go for refuge. When, O supreme amongst humans, you were born in this earth, you played out the 7 strides, and then said, I am supreme in this world. To you, O wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form sublimely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, win over the best, Lord, to you prostrate. With supreme science, face like a spotless moon, God like gold, to you prostrate. Thus 3 like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you prostrate. The Saviour having great compassion, the founding having all understanding, the field of merit equals like a vast ocean. To you, the one can't dustness, I prostrate. The purity that frees from attachment, the virtue that frees from the lower realms, the one part, sublime pure reality, the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and show the path to liberation, the only field qualified realizations, were devoted to the moral precepts, to you, sublime communion tending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the Great Sangha. To all 3 ever devote homage. To all worldly of respect, bound with bodies, as many realms and all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a vibration, flame of a lamp, an illusion, drop or a dew or a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things and such. To this merits may all sentient beings attain the rank of all seen, subdue the full faults, and be delivered from the samsāra ocean, perturbed by the waves, aging, sickness, and death. I prostrated the Arya Triple Gem. Thus I heard at one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on the Mars Virtuous Mountain at Rajgir together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At the time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories phenomena called profound perception. Also at the time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty in nature. Then, to the power of the Buddha, the Vambashariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice activities of profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokitesvara said to the Venerable Shariputra, Shariputra and son of the lineage, daughter of the lineage, who wish to practice activities of profound perfection of wisdom, should look upon it like this, correctly and repeating, behold, those 5 aggregates also as empty in nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, and form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, and composition of factors and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristics, unproduced, unsustained, not without stain, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there's no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visible form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, no phenomenon. There is no element up to including the mind element and the mental conscious element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to including no aging and death, no extinction, aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and part. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on the 12 perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. And all the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times also manifest complete awake, renounced by perfect, complete light, and reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the non-surprised mantra, the mantra equal to unequal, to the mantra truly pacified all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared Tayata, Gata Gata, Paragata, Parasamgata, Bodhisattva. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commanded the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avivisvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that one should practice profound perfection of wisdom, just as you indicated, and even Tathagats rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avivisvara, and those surrounding their entirety, along with the worlds of gods, humans, and Suras, were overjoyed and highly praised, spoken by the Bhagavan. I prostrate to the gathering of the kinis of the 3 chakras, who abide of the holy earth and using space. By the power of clairvoyance and magic emanation, look at the practitioner like the mother of our child. Akasamara Sasana Samaya Bhyakas. Akasamara Sasana Samaraya Bhya Tayata Gata Gata Paragata Parasamgata Bodhisattva. By the teaching of the 3 divine jewels presenting power of truth, may in and out hints be transformed, may it be dispelled, and may it be pacified. May all negative force opposed to the Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we separate from problems and have condition to the Dharma. And may all enjoyments be accordance with the Dharma, and may there be auspicious and perfect happiness here and right now. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect pure Guru. Correctly devoting to the Guru is the root of the paths. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon the Guru with great respect. And please bless me to rely upon the Guru with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, it's greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate a mind that unceasingly day-night takes its essence. Please bless me to generate a mind that unceasingly day-night takes its essence. This life is impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly gaze and death comes. After death, just like the shadow follows the body, the result of black and white karma follow. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be careful, to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. Please bless me always to be careful, to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. Seeking samsaric pleasures is door to all suffering. They are uncertain, cannot be relied upon. Recognize these shortcomings. Please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of teaching is keeping the Pachimoksha vows. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all modern migratory beings. Please bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, and bear responsibility for free migratory beings. Please bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, and bear responsibility for free migratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta but do not practice the 3 types of morality, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows of great energy. Please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows of great energy. Once I pacify distraction to wrong objects and correctly analyze the meaning of reality, please bless me to generate quickly from my mind stream the unified part of calm abiding a special insight. Please bless me to generate quickly my mind stream, the unified path of calm abiding, especially inside. Having become a pure vessel by training in a general path, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortune path, Supreme Vajra vehicle. Please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortune path, Supreme Vajra vehicle. At that time, the base of accomplishing true attainments is keeping pure vows and samadhi. As I become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the two stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up before sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the Gurus show the noble paths and spiritual friends who practice ever long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely out in the hindrances. Please bless me to pacify completely out the hindrances. In all my lives, never separate from perfect Gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities, states, and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. May I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Badi Sangye Mede Vadi Joguna Dajina Je Bar Idam Guru Nyayataya mi sangye chedan tsuni tsunam la janjo badu dani gazo ji dagi chuje give sona Ola penje sangye do ba jo sangye chedan tsuni tsunam la janjo badu dani dagi chuje give sona Dola penje sangye do ba jo sangye chedan tsuni tsunam Janjo Bado Dani Gyazuji Dagi Juji Gibbetson Dola Penshi Sangin Rumba. Let me get Godam de la Chatse Lo. Yeah, so today the topic departing from the four attachments, or you could say separating from the four types of kasa, shenpa, shen or adherence. That's actually a literal translation of it. Yeah, so it's very similar to Lama Tsongkhapa's three principal aspect of the path. But then, yeah, this is from the Sakya tradition, from Sachen Kunga Nyingpo, one of the great masters of Sakya. And he had this vision of Manjushri, as also says in the beginning of the text, after engaging in a retreat when he was very young. And then Manjushri told him this verse. So yeah, many people, they expect to see Manjushri and giving kind of instant kind of blessings to get all the realizations of the path, or but we have to do it ourselves. Unfortunately, that's not possible, right? The Buddha cannot give his realization to us, so we have to do it ourselves, so that's kind of quite clear also in this text, that although meeting Manjushri straight in front, then Manjushri will give the same advice of Lamrim, right? In a similar way, when His Holiness Dalai Lama gives Kala Chakra, and then in the early days in Bodhgaya, a few 100,000 people show up, and then instead of starting with Kala Chakra, His Holiness teaches Lamrim. So that gives a sign that Lamrim is very important, that's the whole structure of the path to enlightenment. Without Lamrim, nothing else makes much sense, particularly in our traditions. The Lamrim is very, very structured. So yeah, this text, although it's actually just the root text, it's actually one verse. But you can talk about it for months, as if you want to. So that the whole Lamrim is being condensed within that. But it's also interesting that Manjushri told this verse, and that shows the importance of the Lamrim. So that's a little bit of the history, and that's based on that one verse you can compile a whole Lamrim. There's many various commentaries on this text in the Sakya tradition, which you're probably aware of, and brief ones and more elaborate ones. Yeah, so we also have Atisha's Lamp of the Path, and on that also there's various kind of commentaries, and yeah, you can see it all comes basically same as this particular text, based on the aspects of the Lamrim of Joji Atisha, yeah, and also the practices Sachen Kunga Nyingpo went into, also very much related with the Kadam tradition of Atisha. Yeah, when he faced some obstacles in his retreat, he depended on Blue Achala, which is also one of the 4 deities of the Kadam, as you know. So yeah, but in the retreat mainly depend on Manjushri to increase wisdom, and then Manjushri told him in this verse, you know. So that's kind of the history, so to say, of the text. And yeah, for the Sakya tradition, that's one of the main instructions upon which all the commentaries of the Lamrim are based. Yeah? So as we know, in each tradition, we have their own kind of commentaries. Yeah, we have in the Nyingma, for example, we have Japada Rinpoche, was my perfect teacher. Yeah, it's a very a very good Lamrim text. And then in the Kagyu, we have Komkopa's Jewel Ornament for Liberation, for example. And then in Geluk, we have various commentaries by Lama Tsongkhapa on the Lamrim, the Great Exposition, Middle Length, Songs of Experience, and then the Foundation of Good Qualities, and the Three Principal Aspect of the Path. So yeah, this text is very similar to the Three Principal Aspect of the Path, although it's only 4 verses, and the Three Principal Aspect a few more verses, but it comes down to the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, so 4 lines in the text. So yeah, that we have enough time to go. I mean, we don't have enough time to go over in great detail, but yeah. So the first aspect is, it says in attachment to this life, right? Tsedila shena chun means, yeah, which is translated as if you attach to this life, you are not a true spiritual practitioner. Yeah, so we know that the benefits of thinking about death and impermanence helps us to engage in the Dharma, and if you engage in the Dharma, also to make the Dharma pure. Yeah, so if you death and impermanence is very essential in engaging in the Dharma or not. And even Tibetan, literally, it says if you have adherence or you have craving for this life, that is not the Dharma. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward that things that are related with this life are very temporary, you know, and things related with this life are basically cause for suffering. You know, once I remember when Lama Zopa Rinpoche gave for the first time, he taught in Bangalore, in the city of Bangalore, South India. He taught the first teaching he gave. And when he gave the first teachings, then also he was very much Kadam style of teachings. And then he also, one point of time, he said, yeah, everything motivated to the attachment to this life is a cause for suffering in samsara and even lower rebirths. And then many people were like, oops, is that really true? And one person asked in the end, is it really true? And then without elaborating, Rinpoche said, yes. And then continued. So I was at this question, you know, why is that true? You know, because what is the scriptural reference of that if things are, you know, just related with this life, why is that a cause for suffering, samsara, you know, particularly low realms? But then in chapter 9 of the Abhishamalankara, sorry, not Abhishamalankara, the Abhidharmakosha, there Vasubandhu also indicates these aspects, that if you don't look for means to achieve more happiness than you already have, then you're just stuck in the same kind of events all the time. Yeah, so that we see in various forms of existence, especially in the lower realms of the animal realm. Yeah, they cannot really think about anything else than just food and filling the stomach. You know? So as humans, we are a bit more sophisticated minds, so to say. So we should use that opportunity to contemplate the Lamrim. Because if you don't contemplate death and impermanence, then it's very easy to just be stuck in this life, yeah, and then just have the attachment in this life, and it doesn't bring much benefit to one's mind on the long term. Yeah, so that's what it means. If you attach to this life, you're not a true spiritual practitioner. And in the teachings on death and impermanence, we know if you don't meditate on death and impermanence, first of all, you will not generate interest in the Dharma, right? And then if you generate some interest in the Dharma, and then if you don't meditate on death and impermanence again and again, then your practice of the Dharma will never become pure, they say, right? So it never becomes pure Dharma, means is things that are motivated this life is very short-sighted, you know, because this life is very short, maybe 80 years, and that's it, you know, maximum. And I think look at you, and then I think most of you are always already, yeah, almost halfway or already halfway through, right? Yeah. So there's not much time left, you see. And that's kind of, the more you contemplate death and impermanence, the more you generate interest in spirituality in general, and in particular with interest in Dharma. It helps also to keep going. Yeah, so the death and impermanence is so important. Without death and impermanence, you know, the motivation is not really there. And we see that also in the near-death experience. People who have a near-death experience, the majority of the people, they get interest in spirituality, they get interest in more value in life, they get interest in being more compassionate, you know, so it's very clear. It's not only a Buddhist principle. That's, the Buddha said this because that's the nature of reality, right? If you see that, you generate interest in spirituality. If you don't see that, then you just keep going, and then it's too late when you die, right? So that's kind of quite clear that we need to contemplate death and impermanence, because it's a reality, you know. We like to escape it, but we have to die, and that death is definite, that we cannot escape it. That's pretty clear. We cannot go to an island, we cannot go to a doctor, we cannot ask a particular medication to stop us from dying. That's not possible. Yeah, so we cannot prevent death from happening, you know? And then the time, as you know, is extremely uncertain. Yeah, we don't know when the time of death comes. Yeah, it can be, we say sometimes, you know, we don't know if in many of the mind trainings you can find that if your next breath is closer, or your next, or death is closer, or going to waking up, or next life. You know, there's no guarantee. So the time of death is very uncertain. And yeah, then we often think about war and all kind of crisis we see at the moment on the planet. You know, it's kind of quite clear that things are not that stable as we think things are. It's very clear that also our own body is very fragile, as you know. It's very easy to die. You just have to fall in a particular way and have complications, and there you go, or some cancer, and that's it. And then the problem is that we're going to die. Okay, to a certain extent we understand, but that it can happen any moment is for most of us quite difficult, right? But that's a reality, you know, that there's no guarantee we're gonna even finish the session. You know, that's true. We think, yeah, don't worry. But even people who have cancer, people who have a heart attack, or who are in the process of dying, they never thought it's going to happen to them already. You know, so that's pretty clear that there's no escape. You know, and it's coming closer and closer. You know, every step you take, basically every breath you take, is a breath close to death. For every birthday you celebrate is another year close to death. That's a reality, right? Yeah, and that's a reality. And then the time is very uncertain, as we just said, because, you know, our body is extremely fragile, and there's no guarantee at the time of birth. You know, and then what only what things that are our benefit when we die is basically our mental development. That's pretty clear. Yeah, our body we have to leave behind. You might be one of the best athletes, or one of the best kind of powerful sportsmen, or into martial arts or whatsoever. When you die, it's all over. You know, so that kind of. But the mind continues, right? So the mind continues. So that means we have to invest in that aspect of developing of the mind. That's pretty clear. Yeah, so contemplation of death and impermanence helps us to to motivate ourselves to engage in Dharma, and then makes the Dharma pure, and to make sure we keep engaging into the Dharma. So contemplation of death and impermanence is extremely important in the beginning, the middle, and the end, as we say. Also, the Buddha very clearly showed in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. Right? The first teaching of the Buddha was about death and impermanence. When the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths in Sanat, and the first of the four aspects of the truth of suffering is impermanence. So that's pretty clear. Then throughout the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha said among the four footers, or the element, or the animals, the elephant is the ones with the biggest footprint. Among all discriminating factors, the discriminating factor of impermanence and death is the most superior one. So that's during the Buddha's teaching. And then also when the Buddha passed away, then he showed the aspect and said to his followers, look, the Tathagata is passing away. You are the witness. So that means that the Buddha taught death and impermanence in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. And for us, it's very important to contemplate death and impermanence on a regular basis. Very important. If you really want to progress in the Dharma with effort, then death and impermanence is very important. Because now, if you see that's not going to last forever, and you see that you have, this incredible opportunity of having human intelligence, not having too many wrong views, and having some interest and maybe even some faith sometimes, and it's all available. The Dharma is completely available. That's kind of, most of us don't really realize this. We're just wandering around in samsara since beginner's lifetime, and then we're just being born at the time that the Buddha came on the planet and taught, and the teaching are still in an undegenerated stage, which is only a few thousand years. Then think, oh yeah, a few thousand years, that's a lot, but it's nothing compared to billions of years of world evolution, right? If you think that, 2,500 years ago, there was no Buddhism as we know it now, and then you go another few thousand years before that, or 40,000 years ago, and we were completely on the planet Earth, for example, crazy creature fighting each other all the time. And now you see with increase of war and climate disaster and pandemics, and it's not going to be a flowery future. That's pretty clear, right? So also everything is degenerating. That's very, very, very clear. That's we think, oh yeah, go over, pandemic goes, then the pandemic is over, then there's a war, then there's a natural disaster, then another virus comes. It's pretty clear that we live in a time of degeneration. That's quite clear. So to be born in a country, to be born in a place that you have access to the Dharma, and the Dharma is complete in an undegenerated kind of level or stage, which is only available for, a few lifetimes, and then things become more and more difficult, and then after 2,000 years or so, it's all gone. So this kind of, when we really think about it, then if you don't take the essence right now, we're actually basically in the large coach of the Buddhist train, you could think, that if you don't take the opportunity now and put stable imprints in your mind, then future lifetimes will be more difficult. That's quite clear, And then when you don't have stable imprints in future lifetimes, then you're just completely lost in samsaric. You need the hooks. If you don't have the hooks of the Buddhas, they try to hook us, but if from our side we don't have created the causes for to be hooked, then it will never happen, right? That's pretty clear. But if you practice and study the Dharma the best way you can, then there's a high chance you get hooked again in a future lifetime. Otherwise, we're completely lost. That's quite clear. If you see our own minds without being taught about karma, we don't have a clue about what's good or bad. Before we enter into Buddhism, we try to be a good human being, maybe, but that's it. We still have a lot of afflictions, and then we think following certain afflictions brings happiness. That's pretty clear. Strong different forms of desire, for example, it's very clear that before we met Buddhism, before we have an idea what the mind is all about, we just follow those afflictions and then think, oh, that's a cause for happiness, but it's not. So that's, without understanding the teachings on karma, then we completely lost, you know. So that's kind of quite clear that we're very lucky to have found an opportunity to have met the Buddhist doctrine, and not just the Buddhist doctrine, but a very profound one of the various traditions of you know, in this case, the Tibetan tradition is completely available in the different traditions, and then also available from the point of view of very pure lineages and transmissions and initiations and lineages of the Lamrim and in-depth philosophy. It's all there. It's all there, you know. So that's kind of it's just from our side that is lacking. We are lacking to put effort. That's pretty clear, because if you don't put effort now, then future lifetimes will be more difficult, right? So that's kind of quite clear why in the first line it says, if you attach to this life, you're not really a true practitioner, because then you don't think about the Dharma. Yeah? So the motivation of the purpose of contemplating death and impermanence is important to know always, right? Every Lamrim topic we study, we contemplate, it's very important to know, why do I do this? You know, and then how do I do it? And how do I know I'm going on the right track? Those three, that threefold advice is very important. Why do you meditate in death and impermanence? Not to make you depressed, but to motivate yourself, right? That's quite clear, you know. And then how do you do it? No, normally we contemplate the three roots and the three reasons. Yes, we just summarized it a little bit, that death is definite. Yeah. The first root, you know, and then the second root is that the time of death is very uncertain. Yeah. And then the third root is that when you die, then only the Dharma is of benefit, or your spiritual progress, you could say, is of benefit. You know, your body you have to leave behind, your family members, you know, you have to leave behind. So yeah, that is definite. It's quite clear, you know, that we cannot escape it, as we just saw. There's no doctor or place or medicine that can prevent us from dying. Right? Yeah, so that's the reason why death is definite, you know. That one of the first reasons is that you cannot escape it, basically. There's no escape possible. And in the same way why death is definite is because, you know, it's not that death is going further away. No, it's coming closer, you know. So that's kind of also an aspect that it's certain, right? Every step you take is closer to death. Every breath you take is closer to death. The clock is ticking, basically. That's pretty clear. If you karmically get kind of, let's say, 80 years or 70 years, then there's a kind of a countdown, right? So instead of putting candles on your birthday cake, maybe you can put a countdown, and then put 80 years and then maybe 40 years or something gone, and you know, more. And then you see the seconds going, especially when they're split seconds. Then you don't have to blow out candles, don't worry about it. Or to make a wish and just see what's happening. That's the reality, you know. So it's kind of, we're getting closer to that rather than that death is going further away. Yeah. And you know, that's the second reason. And then the third reason that that is definite is that there's no guarantee you finish your projects or things like that before you die. You know, it's very clear that you can just die in the middle of an event. You know, sometimes people get married, you know, the happiest day in their life, and then just going to the place, car accident, and one of the two dies. You know, that happens. So that means that there is no guarantee, you know, that yeah, that you finish your projects or something like that. So, or your different ideas or things you want to do in life. Yeah, that is definite. Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of quite clear. You cannot escape it. It's coming closer rather than further away. And on top of that, you know, it can happen any moment. That, in a sense, not happen any moment, for the second point, but you can never finish things you like to finish. Yeah. And then that is kind of the time is uncertain, because you know, the present time on this planet, things are not fixed. You know, it's not that you get guaranteed a particular lifespan. Some people die at birth, some people die in the womb, some people die before their parents. You know, so it's very uncertain, their time. And then certain medicines might help you with a particular sickness, but than the antidotes curing process of sickness. But there's a lot of side effects, you know. So there's many causes that actually causes death rather than that what sustains life, you know. And yeah, our body is like a water bubble, you know. It looks a very solid kind of strong thing, but actually it's very weak. Yeah. Just a little virus you cannot even see can completely destroy it, you know. Very easy. Yeah, it's very easy to within a few weeks just everything degenerates, or you get a stroke with some complications of infections and things degenerate. That's it. So the body is like a water bubble, we say, right? Very, very fragile. Yeah. Yeah. And then the time of that, that we just talked about is very uncertain. And then what we do when we die, then we have to leave behind our friends, our family, our followers on social media, if you have any. That you have to leave all behind, right? Yeah, nobody is following you when you die. It's only your continuity to consciousness that goes, you know. So then you might consider, oh, maybe it's important to develop this continuity of consciousness, because that gives you the future, right? If you think this life is very short and future lifetimes are extremely long, then maybe it's wise to invest in the future, because it's much longer. Yeah, it's much more beneficial to invest in long-term benefits rather than just a temporary thing, you know? Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of about death and impermanence. And then what it says here, to make your to enter the path, basically we have to contemplate death and impermanence, and then combine that with seeing how fortunate you are with the precious human rebirth. And we just talked about the preciousness of the Dharma being available, and having some intelligence, and having not too many wrong views, and having a certain amount of faith. Then, you know, if you think about the 18 freedoms and endowments, it's very difficult to find something like that. You know, most people are not interested in morality, for example. You know, so yeah, if you don't have morality, then there's no cause for precious human rebirth. Forget it. You know, you need to create causes. You know, that's quite clear. So yeah, you just look in the rest of the world. Most people are not interested in ethics. You know, so that's very important. Without ethics, morality, there's no causes for precious human rebirth. You know? And it's very then you can see how difficult it is to find something like that, precious human rebirth. You know, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of, from many angles, you can see that having the 18 freedoms and endowments is very difficult, first of all. And then most in the modern times, we add number 19, and that is time. Everybody is so busy with things. So that means that to really have time to sit down and study and contemplate the Lamrim, it's very rare to find people like that. It's very rare, you know. So that's kind of, you can see that it's very rare to have the opportunity you have right now. So that's kind of pretty clear. So yeah, contemplating those aspects, then you should generate a kind of an urge to do something with the potential you have right now. That's quite clear. Yeah. So that's why this first line is basically to motivate us, because if we go into next lifetime and we just follow habituation patterns of the past, then maybe there's not that much hope. If you just check your own mind, then you know your habituation patterns, the attachments to this life and the interest to future lifetimes. What is the difference? See every day how much of your activity is for the purpose of this life and how much of your activity is for the purpose of future lifetimes. Then you can do the maths for yourself, calculate, and then you know where your interest is. Yeah, so that's kind of clear. Because next life is coming. Yeah, that's a guarantee. We cannot prevent that from happening. You know? So yeah, then that's kind of the first aspect of the text that we get. That's why death and impermanence is extremely important contemplation, and then combine it with precious human rebirth, and then you prevent yourself from falling to lower states of existence. And once born there, then to get out is nearly impossible, right? Unless you meet a high holy being or holy object. Otherwise, it's very difficult, almost impossible to get out. So we have to make sure we don't fall to lower states of rebirth, and practice morality with some stainless, with a stainless prayer. So stainless prayer doesn't mean may I have a happy human birth in my next lifetime, and then may I be happy. That by itself is not really a very stainless prayer. You have to focus upon enlightenment, and for that purpose, or liberation, for example, and for that purpose, wishing to achieve a presumed rebirth, and then move on in the sense of keep progressing. Yeah, so that's kind of very important to have that prayer combined with practicing morality and then practicing generosity and patience as a corporate conditions for future states of existence, right? Yeah. So then the presumed rebirth you have achieved in the future. Yeah, but then you still have to contemplate other aspects to get out of samsara. Yeah, so that's the second line in the text where it says, if you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. Yeah, so yeah, in Tibetan it says kamsumla shena nijung means. Yeah, so that means if you have adherence or craving for the three realms, right, the desire realm, the form, and the formless realm, then there is no renunciation. Yeah, that is what it says literally. Yeah. So attached to samsara in English, yeah, the three realms. Yeah, because it's quite easy to get attached to subtle forms of consciousness, for example, and get rid of the coarser forms of mind we have in desire realm, for example. Yeah. So yeah, then if you have that, then you have done the real renunciation, because real renunciation is focused upon the wish to get rid of all forms of contaminated birth, sickness, aging, and death. Yeah, even though you have a precious human rebirth, but that's still not really perfect. Yeah, we know that from our present life, life is not perfect. There's mental suffering, there's physical suffering, and there's the all-pervasive compounding form of suffering, the most important one to be understood. So yeah, to generate real renunciation of samsara, to contemplate the various states of existence is extremely important. Otherwise, it doesn't become a very genuine form of renunciation, right? Yeah, if you just contemplate, oh, I'm sick, oh, I have a headache, oh, I have a difficulty in the office or something like that. That's not real renunciation, right? The real renunciation is understanding the cause of all this, the contaminated aspects. Yeah, so the suffering of suffering is very easy to recognize when you have a headache or cold or fever. That's not really a big deal to recognize that. Even animals can do that, right? Or the suffering of change, same thing. It's also not a big deal, and even animals can recognize that. Yeah? It's too hot in the sun, they go in the shade, and the other way around. It's too cold in the shade, they go in the sun. Or if you have too much food when you're very hungry, and then your mind gets dull, or you get a stomach ache after. So it's kind of quite clear. That's not really too difficult to recognize the suffering of change. And so when the Buddha said you should know suffering in his first teaching, he didn't say the suffering of suffering or the suffering of change. He mentioned the all-pervasive compounded form of suffering. Yeah, so that means that as long as you have karma and afflictions, there's no escape from suffering. That's very important to understand. Because when Lama Tsongkhapa, in Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chemo, the Great Exposition, and the Middle Length Lamrim, when Lama Tsongkhapa talks about the suffering of humans, yeah, of birth, sickness, aging, and death, yeah, so the four rivers, so to say, or the four currents of suffering, yeah. As well as never finding what you, never meeting things you like to meet, yeah, like nice kind of people and nice kind of jobs, and that's not happening. And meeting things you don't like to meet, because you meet the opposite. You meet people who are not nice, and you meet situations you don't like. Yeah. And then the sixth type of suffering there is then the seventh, yeah, is there. The seventh type of suffering in that list is then never being satisfied, or not finding what you're looking for, so to say, And it's pretty clear. The more we look for happiness in this life, we're never really satisfied. We always want to have something more, or looking for something else. There's no really something that when you say, oh, okay, now I'm completely satisfied, that's it, I don't need anything anymore. That doesn't really happen very often. Actually, that happens never. Never. Yeah. So, it's very clear that there's no real satisfaction in life. The more you engage in the objects of desire, then it's very sneaky, because desire always tells us, oh, if you follow me, you get some benefit. If you follow me, you get some happiness. And then we follow it, and then there's more desire, and then there's no real happiness found. Yeah, then we jump. Yeah, same thing. Every object of desire or activity that is connected with strong desire, then as soon as you obtain that object or that activity, then you want to have the object again or do the activity again straight after. There's no satisfaction. And then you keep going, keep going. It's like drinking salty water when you're very thirsty. It's kind of very clear that there's no satisfaction in any place in samsara. And then you can see people use in people following the senses. In most people on this planet, they follow the senses, right? If it's money, if it's holidays, if it's drinking, if it's food, or whatever, there's never real satisfaction to be found. And then people use drugs, and then one drug is not good enough, so they have a cocktail of different things, and then it's never bringing any satisfaction. That's quite clear, Otherwise, they won't keep going like that. There's no satisfaction in life. So that's kind of quite clear that the object of the senses do not produce any form of sustainable happiness. That's quite clear. Yeah. So then, if you, that's kind of the seventh type of suffering, right? Not finding what you're looking for, or never having any satisfaction. But then the very interesting aspect is that Lama Tsongkhapa concludes number 8, and then says, in short, or in brief, having contaminated aggregates, which summarizes all the previous types of suffering. Yeah, because the first 4 types of suffering of birth, sickness, aging, and death, they're kind of very much manifest forms of suffering. You can see. And then not meeting things you like to meet, and meeting things you don't like to meet, are kind of more manifest forms of mental suffering, right? And then not finding what you're looking for is also kind of a mental suffering, right? But then, to summarize all those physical and mental sufferings, of basically the first 7 talks about suffering and suffering of change mainly, but it's all rooted in something. And that's Lama Tsongkhapa says, in brief, having contaminated aggregates. So meaning, as long as you have afflictions, there's no escape, right? As long as you have karma and afflictions, there's no escape. Wherever you go, and you can see that very clearly. If you take your mind everywhere you go, and you might go on a world trip, or you might go to different destinations, but you will see there's no satisfaction there. It's just a temporary distraction of the mind, nothing else. And so that's quite clear that we see that there's no satisfaction in samsara. That's what Lama Tsongkhapa says. In short, having contaminated aggregates. So that means if you, as long as you have karma and afflictions, there's no escape. So here, very similar thing is explained by Sachen Kunga Nyingpo. That if there's attachment to samsara, desire to samsara, or adherence, or kind of craving for samsara, there's no renunciation. You cannot renounce things. You really have to understand the true cause of suffering, which is, the most important one. The Buddha said you should know suffering. He said the all-pervasive compounding form of suffering. That you should know. That means as long as you've karma and afflictions, there is no escape. Wherever you go in samsara, wherever you go in the 3 realms, as desire realm, or the God realms, or whatsoever, there's no escape. Yeah. So yeah, if you're attached to samsara, then there's no renunciation. Yeah. So we all want to practice a little bit Buddhism on the side, and then for a few % of the day, and then the remaining part of the day we just occupied with attachment to this life and to samsara. It's very clear. It's very clear. That's really something we have to contemplate again and again. The various types of suffering of samsara to really understand. And then the more you understand reincarnation, the more you understand the possibility of rebirth in the various realms, then samsara becomes, the renunciation becomes more genuine. So that's very clear. That if you really and then combine it with karma, combine it with other aspects of the Lamrim, is very important to get a clear picture of what is samsara all about, you know, and then becomes very scary. I mean, in a positive way, from the point of view, a constructive form of fear, right? Not the unconstructive form of fear, but kind of, okay, look, this is the situation. As long as I have afflictions in my mind, there's no escape. I have to do something about these afflictions. Yeah, so that's quite clear. Yeah, and then you generate a real wish to get out of samsara, or a real form of renunciation, or a genuine form of renunciation, right? Which is very essential to be generated. Without that, you cannot really generate renunciation. That's quite clear. You know, without understanding the all-pervasive compounding form of suffering, then real general renunciation will not arise. And if there's no general renunciation, then also the compassion will be very limited. Yeah, so that's quite clear. If you don't understand suffering very well, how can you generate a wish for others to be free of suffering? So that's very important to contemplate samsaric suffering again and again until you really start to feel a bit uncomfortable from the point of view of that you really see, wow, this is quite a dangerous or kind of frightening state of existence. You know, we think we are all very stable. You know, we think, oh yes, my life is okay, and yeah, it's okay. So our mind is so in this life, you know, and that prevents us from really contemplating the Lamrim properly, because things are not that stable as they look like. Things are extremely unstable. You know, we saw it with the pandemic. We think, oh, everything is in control, but within a few weeks, the whole world was upside down, right? So, and just another few wars have to start here and there, and before you know it, you know, everywhere, everybody will be affected. It's quite clear, and it only takes a few days sometimes, or you know, it's very clear that things are not that stable as it looks like, right? So it's very clear. And why are things not as stable as it look like? Because of these afflictions. And you see people with strong afflictions, also we call them a person who is unstable. You see, it's very clear that these afflictions cause so much suffering and so much trouble that as long as you have them, then there's no escape. So that's the most important thing to contemplate, to get this insight that you need to be free of all afflictions. Otherwise, there's no escape from samsara. Yeah, so that meaning that all the types of suffering in samsara, or that, you know, or falling from higher realms to lower realms again and again. This in Chandakirti's kasa supplement to the middle way and the commentaries on that. Then Chandakirti explains it like this kasa irrigation wheel, right? To scoop the water from one level to the next. You know, yeah, they still have windmills in the Netherlands. It's my country of origin, where we have too much water, so we have to pump it out. Yeah, so it's a bit easier with a windmill. But in India, in the early days, they had this, you do with your hand, right? You turn it to scoop the water. So it's very easy for the buckets to go down, and very difficult for the buckets to get up. You know, that's quite clear. So it's very easy to fall to lower states of existence and have more suffering, because then the buckets go down, they bump against the stones and the different things, you know, especially when yeah, the wheel is not that well made, you know. So that's what Chandakirti said. That's kind of the samsaric suffering. Very easy to fall down, very difficult to get up, and then when you go down, there's more suffering. You know, that's kind of quite clear that we really have to do something about these afflictions, because we see how our afflictions are still so strong. You know, especially the craving for things in this life, and the craving for our existence is very strong. You know, that's kind of, and then that causes a lot of problems. You know, that we can see. We think things are very stable, but things are not. Yeah. So yeah, the real renunciation comes only after seeing this aspect of the view, because this aspect of the all-pervasive compounding form of suffering, right? To see, as long as you have afflictions, there's no escape. And then we know the root of all these afflictions is ignorance. Yeah, so to eliminate this ignorance, as we will come to the last line of this verse, to eliminate ignorance, then you have to understand the view of emptiness. Yeah, because ignorance, as long as you have this ignorance, there is no escape. in the sense, then as long as you have ignorance, there are afflictions like anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, that's meaning. But as long as there's a grasping or a sense of an I, that seems to exist or appears to exist in a very solid, independent way. I need this, I need that. How dare this person say this to me? I am not like that. Yeah. As long as that is present, there is no escape for afflictions to arise. So that has to go. So the more you understand ultimate reality of emptiness, the stronger your renunciation will become. Yeah, and also His Holiness Dalai Lama said many occasions that once you study emptiness a bit more, then you see liberation is possible. That means not only your renunciation will become stronger, because you see the root of all afflictions is ignorance, and you see that you can take this ignorance away with the wisdom realizing emptiness, and the more you engage in that aspect related with afflictions and ignorance, then you get a very genuine form of renunciation, that you really see why we are suffering and how to get out. And then we can generate not just renunciation, but also a wish for liberation, as we call it, right? Yeah. Without that kind of conviction, it's all kind of artificial, oh yeah, I have a bit of suffering I don't like. But you really have to understand, why is this suffering happening? What is the cause of all this? What are these afflictions, and why is it rooted in? So that you can really see. To understand ignorance, the view of the transcendental collection, it's very important. To see whenever there's an affliction, there's always a sense of I or mine. Yeah, when we have anger or strong desire, it's always I want this, or how dare this person say this to me? I am not like this. And you see it in war everywhere. We need this, and the other person says, no, you're not allowed to get this, and then there's a fight, and then it goes to the extreme of killing people, right? Yeah. So very clear that the more people think about there's an I there, or the more narcissistic people are, the more problems then arise. That's quite clear, So that's very clear that this ignorance is the root of all samsaric problems. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the I that we refute. And then we will see, it also said there's also an I that does exist, because there's a conventional I. That emptiness doesn't mean nothing exists at all. Yeah, so that means the inherent I does not exist, or the from its own side existing self, or the independent self, that does not exist, because there is nothing that is independent. There is nothing that exists inherently. Yeah, so that's kind of important to know. There is a conventional self, and there is a kind of self that does not exist. Yeah, and the self that does not exist, this ignorance, so to say, or the view of transcendental collection, that's basically the root of all the problems. Yeah, the apprehension of an inherent I and mine. Yeah, so that's kind of that exists. So we have to important to see what exists and what does not exist, right? So the inherent I does not exist, and the conventional self does exist, right? Because there's a person sitting here listening, contemplating, writing things down, and even needs a break, maybe. Yeah, also. So maybe we have a short break before we go to the last two lines of the verse of bodhicitta and the view reality emptiness. Yeah, 10 minutes, is that okay or not? Yeah, just stretch your legs and watch somewhere out in the sky, or to the window instead of the screen. Yeah. Okay, so let's have 10 minutes then. So I don't know what time it's at your place, but here it will be 4:15. But yeah.
For those on the East Coast, 11:15. We'll be
Okay,
back.
11:15. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, then see you 11:15 your time. Yeah. Okay. All right, back. Yeah, didn't die. So generate correct motivation before we start. Yeah. So then, if you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation, right? That's the line we just discussed. So we have to detach, and the real detachment means, to give up the afflictions, right? The afflictions and the desire for in this life. It's the first line, and the desire or samsara in the second line. It was very easy to many people have that, no? Among the Buddhists, that you think, okay, I do my best, and the next lifetime is very similar, you know. Then this next lifetime I'm again meet the Buddhist teaching, and again go to teachings and study and meditate like that, you know. But next lifetime does not that guarantee it will be like that, right? So that's kind of right now you have the opportunity that we know. That's a guarantee. But the next lifetime is no guarantee you have the same. So it's really time now to do something about it, right? Yeah. Yeah, and then understanding the suffering of samsara, contemplate it again and again until a real genuine form of renunciation or real genuine form of a wish to get up out of samsara has been generated. Yeah, that takes time. Yeah. Then the third line, even though, yeah, if you attach to your own self-interest, you have not bodhicitta. Yeah, so if you only, literally it says dagdun shena, Jansen means. So if you have adherence to the purpose of yourself, you know, and then probably in the aspect of only, then there is no mind of bodhicitta, yeah, or mind of enlightenment, or mind wishing to achieve enlightenment. Yeah, so individual liberation for yourself, from the point of view of liberation from samsara, is you know, is one thing. But you're not only one, yeah. So there's so many other beings who are much more in number than we are. They have exactly the same wish, wanting happiness, not wanting suffering, and they're more in number, you know. So that's quite clear. They all have the same wish as we have. So how wonderful it would be if you can work for that purpose. How wonderful it would be if you can be able to liberate them, you know. So then you might generate interest in the possibility of you know, liberating all sentient beings without exception. So that's what we call, if you only have attached to self-interest, so you could think about, it's in Tibetan says dagdun, which means the purpose of oneself. You know? Yeah, but you could go to the extreme of there's a difference between self-cherishing and self-interest. Yeah? So, for example, an arat, you know, that doesn't really have self-cherishing, or a person on the path of this individual liberation. Yeah, they have what we call in Tibetan rani chibu dunya gidro. You know, it's kind of for the purpose of oneself. So it's similar to what it says here, dagdun. You know, just it can be very constructive, right? A person who strives for liberation, you know, wants to get liberated from samsara, yeah, without having a self-cherishing attitude. Yeah, so that's two different things, you know. So what it means here, attached to your own self-interest, is mainly referring, of course, it refers to also self-cherishing, but also referring to the self-interest of only liberation for yourself from samsara. Yeah, so that's kind of a constructive form of self-interest. Yeah, so if you strive for liberation for yourself, that's a very constructive form of mind. Yeah, but if you have a self-cherishing attitude, that's not very constructive. That's an affliction. Yeah, self-cherishing is involved with attachment. So self-cherishing attitude is involved with attachment, and what it says here, just a mere self-interest is involved with kind of constructive way of eliminating ignorance and going to liberation, right? Which is kind of one way very constructive mind. But if you have either of those two minds, then you will not achieve full enlightenment of Buddhahood. That's what it talks about here. Yeah, if you have self-cherishing attitude, or you don't have self-cherishing attitude, but you have the mere wish for one's own liberation, right? Then there's no bodhicitta, because the bodhicitta is a mind with two aspirations, wanting to achieve a state of enlightenment, which is a resultant aspiration, as you know, for the purpose of liberating sentient beings from their suffering, which is a causal aspiration of great compassion. Yeah. So, yeah, if you don't have that, if you only have this interest for yourself, you will not have this great compassion. Of course, people on the hearer and pracheka paths, so to say, those who strive for liberation for themselves, they also have compassion. They also teach. Yeah, and you can see that they receive teachings, they meditate on the points, they develop their minds, and they teach others to do the same, right? So they have compassion. But what we talk about here is to go beyond the self-interest or self-interest for liberation, right? So if you want to achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings, for that purpose you generate bodhicitta, and the bodhicitta is based upon wanting to liberate all sentient beings, which is compassion, but not just any form of compassion, right? It's a compassion that has a responsibility. That's why we call it the compassion of the compassion of special intention. Yeah, if you study the 7 instructions of cause and effect of developing bodhicitta, then you know that the 6th point, yeah, that is kind of the what we call the special intention, or the compassion that takes the responsibility. I am going to liberate all sentient beings, right? Yeah. Or in Tibetan, sometimes some masters, they prefer the term kyap dugi ningje. Yeah, kyap means refuge, de means wish, ningje means compassion. So it's a kind of a compassion that wants to be the refuge for others. Yeah, in the sense of wants to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. Yeah, so that's kind of a great compassion, as we call it. Yeah, there's a difference between compassion and great compassion. Great compassion is this wish to take responsibility, and compassion in general is a wish for others to a wish to liberate others from their suffering. Yeah, so that's kind of a difference there. It's very clear in the 4 immeasurables, as you know, how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings are free from suffering. May they be free from suffering. Yeah, the first 2 lines of the immeasurable of great compassion refers to compassion in general. Yeah, how wonderful it would be that all sentient beings be free of suffering. May they be free of suffering. Yeah. Well, great compassion, this compassion at a level of special intention, at the 7 instructions of cause and effect of generating bodhicitta, yeah, that great compassion is this great compassion with this responsibility. Yeah, not just how wonderful it be if sentient beings free of suffering, may they be free from suffering, but the 3rd line reads, I will cause them to be free from suffering. Yeah, there's a responsibility, you know. So that's kind of what it refers here to, because you can have compassion and you can have a self-interest. That's possible. Yeah, you can just strive for liberation for yourself, but also think, oh, all sentient beings without exception, that's too much. I just go for liberation for myself, but still have compassion and try to help others the best way you can, right? But not the compassion of the special intention that goes beyond limitations. All sentient beings without exception, I'm going to do it. Yeah. Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to say, by myself alone. Yeah, so that's this kind of very strong kind of determination. I'm going to do this. You know, I'm going to make it happen. You know, that's kind of what we call this great compassion with a very strong determination. Yeah. So if you don't have, if you still have self-interest, then bodhicitta does not arise. Why does bodhicitta not arise? Because this great compassion is not there, right? Yeah, if you still strive for your own liberation and you don't think about all sentient beings without exception, I'm going to do this, then, you know, if you only strive for liberation for yourself, you don't get this great compassion, right? Taking the responsibility to liberate all sentient beings. So that's also been explained in this verse, right? That your own self-interest is not just a self-cherishing attitude, which is an obstacle, as we know, towards bodhicitta. Yeah, but also just wanting liberation for yourself is an obstacle towards bodhicitta, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the self-interest here in the translation we use is just a little bit more than just a self-cherishing attitude. Yeah. Although the self-cherishing attitude you could include, because that is a great obstacle to bodhicitta. Yeah, because we know Shantideva says very clearly, you don't have to say much. In brief, he says, you know, the Buddha always worked for the benefit of others, and we always work for the benefit of ourselves. And look at the difference of the two. I don't have to say much more. It is very clear, you know, that we always thought about ourselves. Well, the Buddha's always thought about others, and you see a very clear difference there. You know? Yeah. So yeah, so then you can see that to really generate bodhicitta, you have to have a very genuine form of interest in benefiting all sentient beings, right? Yeah. Yeah. So then, based on the understanding of the need to liberate all sentient beings, and seeing they are in exactly the same nature as we are, in wanting happiness, not wanting suffering, and they just don't know how to accomplish those aims. So it's our responsibility to do something about that. Yeah, so that's kind of that compassion initially is the kind of how wonderful it be, and then may it be, and then I will cause them to be free from suffering. Yeah? And that is the same sequence we see in the 7 instructions of cause and effect. Yeah, you see your sentient beings as your mother, remember their kindness, you generate a wish to repay their kindness, and then this loving kindness comes because the beings are closer to you. So this kind of loving kindness of close feeling, that's in the Tibetan very clearly Yidong Wajamba, is kind of beings who are pleasant to the mind, and for them I generate a love, for them I generate a wish to always abide in happiness, right? Yeah, so that's kind of what we then accomplish, and then we said get the compassion in general to liberate how wonderful it be if sentient beings be free from suffering, may they be free from suffering, and then we go to the special intention, right, that I will cause them to do so. Yeah, and then based on that we see if we have the capacity to do it, and then we see we need to achieve enlightenment for that purpose, or the qualities of a fully enlightened being. Yeah, so if you're attached to your own self-interest, you will not have bodhicitta, but because you either have, you could say, self-cherishing attitude, which is the greatest obstacle to bodhicitta, or you have the self-interest not with self-cherishing attitude, but just thinking about liberation for yourself. Yeah, so that also can cause an obstacle to generating bodhicitta. Yeah, so that's the 3rd line. Yeah, and then the last line, it says, if there is grasping, you do not have the view. Yeah, or Zimbajuna Tawa means in Tibetan. So yeah, Zimba is often we translate as apprehension, yeah, or holding, so to say. So that's then referring to most likely holding inherent existence. Yeah, so what we normally do all the time, 24/7, that's what we do. Yeah, we hold things to exist inherently, and things appear inherently, and then not just things appear inherently, but also we have the shempa to that, that's the adherence to that. So that's another aspect. It doesn't say in the Tibetan directly the shempa in the last line, although the first 3 lines it refers to the shempa, but it says the in the title in Tibetan also shempa shi dan jalwa, so it means the parting from the 4 attachments. So attachment, shempa is here translated as attachment, but actually the real meaning of shempa in Tibetan is adherence, right? So adherence, or sometimes in a negative way, we translate it as craving, or in this case grasping, Yeah, so that's the terminology and how you translate are one way. You see, the more if you have one verse, that's very interesting. If you really look at the Tibetan and how you translate it, record the meaning, you see different possibilities, many different possibilities. So adherence is one of the possibilities of translating shempa, because there's also a positive shempa. It's not shempa is not only negative. We always say grasping or craving. Yeah, but there's also a positive shempa in the high show tantra, for example. Where you have a shempa to pure appearance, to pure appearances, so that's a positive shempa. So that's why probably the term adherence is maybe better for shempa. Anyway, I'm not a perfect translator, so yeah, I leave that debate up for others. But yeah, it makes quite a difference, So then adherence or grasping it or holding, that's to inherent existence. We do that all the time. Yeah, so from the point of view of the view, you do not have the view if you have this grasping, right, or this adherence. So do we have the view or not? You can question yourself, because most of the time, and in particular the sensory perceptions, it's all things appear very solid out there, and appears very inherent without dependence. That's how things appear to our mind. So it's pretty clear that according to this line, we don't really have the view yet. Yeah. So you really have to contemplate emptiness, sit down and contemplate and meditate on it, and then get some experience, in order to really get the view. Sorry, because the view doesn't mean just to have a slight understanding of emptiness. I mean, in scriptures, if you read the text and you think, okay, everything's empty of inherent existence, everything is nature of dependence, that makes a lot of sense. Nothing exists from its own side. That makes a lot of sense. But that by itself is not really an experience of emptiness, right? It's just kind of intellectual kind of talking about it. Yeah? So it's very important to sit down and contemplate. His Holiness Dalai Lama said many times to the monks and nuns who debate emptiness for a few years, 6 days a week, clapping their hands in the debate courtyard and studying it, receiving teachings and memorizing things. Then it's also very clearly, that's not enough. That's the start, that's the basis. But then you have to sit down and contemplate. Without sitting down and contemplate, you never really get the view. And that's also here very clear. That in order to get the real view, you really have to get convinced about emptiness from within, right? Not just talking about it or reading about it. So that's kind of quite clear. That as long as you have not the view of inherent emptiness of inherent existence, which is combined with, of course, with dependent origination. Also, one of the commentaries I read by Sachen Kungpa Nyingpo, right, previous Sakya teacher, Sachen Kungpa Nyingpo. Also there, he says various interpretations about this point. That one aspect is a dualistic appearance of seeing, as he explained it, seeing that the nature of dependent origination, or the nature things actually appear, and emptiness, seeing those as two different things. That he calls in that commentary dualistic appearance. In one way, it makes sense, because Lama Tsongkhapa, in his Three Principal Aspects of the Path, also says, as long as you see, the appearance of inevitable depending arising, or cause and effect in this case, and emptiness as two different things, you have not found the intent of the Buddha. So there you can see that Sachen Kungpa Nyingpo as well as Lama Tsongkhapa talk about the same thing, right? From the point of view, if you see dependent origination and emptiness as two different things, then you do not have the view. So then you do not have the view. So you should see that dependent origination and emptiness as supporting each other. So that's kind of another aspect you could look at. Because there's dependent origination, that's why there's emptiness of inherent existence. And because there's emptiness of inherent existence, that's why there's dependent origination. So one proves the other. And also Arya Nagarjuna said in his fundamental wisdom, the meaning of emptiness is dependent origination, and the meaning of dependent origination is emptiness. So that's quite clear. Because things are in the nature of dependence, that's why things cannot exist from their own side. So that's quite clear. That's kind of a general explanation of these points. And one aspect is, as long as you still have grasping at the inherent I and mine, going to the view of the transitory collection, then, because that's what the view of transitory collection does. Here, the Zimba term, as translated here as grasping. So in the view of transitory collection, it's very clear. You look at something that exists. The mere collection of your body and your mind, or the merely imputed person, and then you apprehend, the same Zimba, you apprehend what is said in this line, Here it's translated as grasping, but I said also could be apprehension, right? So then what the view of transitory collection does is, that view we have in our minds, we look at the mere collection of the aggregates, or the existing aggregates, or the merely imputed I, and then we think there's an inherent I, an inherent mind on top of that, or we apprehend an inherent I and mind. So that's kind of the view of transitory collection, is exactly what it says here in this line, that holding or apprehending an I, an inherent I, or an inherent mind, and that's kind of the view of transitory collection, as we know. To look at there's something that exists. There's a body, there's a mind that exists, right? But then if you look at your body and your mind, and then you think there's an inherent from its own side existing I and mine on top of that, then that aspect is not a reality. There is no from its own side existing I and mine to be found anywhere. Everything is in nature of dependence. Nothing exists from its own side. Yeah, so that's quite clear that there is no inherent I to be found. Yeah, but we apprehend it in that way. Yeah, so then that means that we don't have the view. So we have to analyze that. Does this I and mine, the way it appears, does it actually exist the way it appears? Yeah, so that's kind of how you could contemplate this line that you see when the I comes up, when you get angry or strong desire arises, or there's fear for death, or somebody criticizes you, you see how the I appears. Well, that's very important. And then you get a clear picture how it appears. And then you try, without losing how the I appears, you try to analyze, where is it? If it exists, I should be able to find it somewhere in my body, or in my mind, or separate from my body and in my mind. You know, I should be able to find it somewhere. But the more you look, the more you come to the conclusion it's not there. It's very similar to a mirage or an illusion. Closer you get, it disappears. But from a distance, or a scarecrow, you know, from a distance it really looks very solid to exist there, without dependence. But actually, the closer you get, you actually analyze, you cannot find it. So where is this inherent I that appears when we get strong desire, or there's strong aversion or anger, or somebody criticizes you, you want to defend yourself and say, I this, I that? Then where is this I, so to say? You know? And then it's very important, first of all, to see how does it appear. You know, then you study the view of the transitory collection, and then you see that the view is the way of apprehension. That's what it says here, right? That if there's grasping, is the way of apprehension. That's what we call the view. Yeah, view of the transitory collection. A view means to think it's like this and that. You know, to have a view on a kind of way of holding something in a particular way. That means view, right? Not just a mere appearance, but to hold it in a particular way. That's why we say the view of the transitory collection. The transitory collection itself are the collection of body and the mind, because they're transitory, they're momentary changing. Yeah? So they exist. The transitory collection of the momentary changing body and mind exists. That's the reality. But then what we do, instead of just seeing the merely I on top of the impermanent body and mind, then we put something on top of that. We think, oh, there's an inherent I there, and an inherent mind there, a controller or something like that, or something that belongs to me because I am, you know. So then you can see that then you cannot really find this I, you see. So it's very interesting. Yeah, Anil Seth, who is a kind of neuroscientist in the more materialistic or view of neuroscience, and when he talks about self, he talks about a very similar thing. He said self is just an apprehension, is not a perception, and perceptions are what he called controlled hallucinations. That's very interesting. So even the perception of a self, from the point of view of this well-respected neuroscientist, it does not really exist. You know, that the self does not really exist. And we see with David Bohm, those kind of great physicists of the past, they also say it's just a show. It's not really there, but a very convincing show. You know, and that's why people take it as an apparent reality, because it feels very comfortable. But actually, we think, oh, I'd be fine. Yeah, but there is no I like that, you see. So there is no from its own side existing I you can fall back upon or something like that. You know, so it feels comfortable actually, but it's just an illusion. That aspect is an illusion. Your body is not an illusion, your mind is not an illusion, but you think there is an I, and that's fine. That's the illusion aspect. There is no from its own side existing I to be found, right? So that's important to know. Also, Sachen Kungpa Nyingpo in his commentary on this, the last verse also talks about illusory appearances or illusory aspects of reality. But it's very important to understand what is an illusion and what is reality. Our mind exists, our body exists. There are not illusions. But the view of the transitory collections thinks there's something on top of that, an I or a mind, That's the illusion aspect. Yeah, so that's kind of very important to know, and that's the illusion aspect. There is no from its own side existing I, although it appears when we get angry or strong desire arises, but the more you look for it, you cannot find it, because there is nothing that is that kind of solid, kind of static, from its own side existing entity to be found anywhere. Yeah, so that's kind of the aspect of you cannot find what actually how it appears. That's the thing. You cannot find how it appears. It appears in a way, the I appears in a way, but exactly according to how it appears, that we cannot find. So then we start to understand that whatever appears is not a reality. That's quite clear. The I that appears is not really a reality. Yeah. So as long as there's grasping, or in this case, there's apprehension of inherent existence, then there's apprehension of the self, and because there's apprehension of the self, then there's anger and attachment, and all kind of other, even modern form of afflictions are rooted in the sense of an inherent self. Right? Yeah, if it's depression or anxiety or fear or whatever mental issue we struggle with, it's all related with the sense of a self. It's quite clear. And why is that quite clear? Because as soon as you have people with very severe mental issues, you give them a treatment with psychedelics, and in particular not the chemical ones, but the more traditional, plant-based, I should say, ones. Then you see with psychedelics there is an ego dissolution happening, and that benefits them. It's very interesting. So that means that a person with a strong sense of a self, and even to the extreme of being a bit narcissistic or something like that, or doesn't mean that everybody with a mental issue is completely narcissistic, but there is a sense of a self there, and that triggers these afflictions very strongly. Yeah. So the more you see that I is not there, the more freedom there is, and you see that same with the psychedelic kind of experiment, that people have exactly the same experience. So yeah, just you don't have to engage in all the psychedelics. You just study emptiness a little bit more, and engage in some preliminary practices to purify the mind and to accumulate merit. And then without psychedelics, it goes much better. Because then you can get a real, genuine form of understanding reality, and get rid of this over time, of this very strong grasping of itself. The more you get rid of a stronger grasping of the self, then also the stronger afflictions will become less. That's quite clear. It's only said many times. The more you contemplate emptiness, it looks like the afflictions become less. And it's very true, because there's no building blocks for the afflictions to arise. If there's no building blocks, then there is no building, right? So that means if there's no grasping an inherent I, then these afflictions will lose their potential to become manifest. That's quite clear. So that's kind of very important to contemplate emptiness, and then not just studying it and try to meditate on it, but also try to engage in preliminary practices. That's very important. Purifying the mind, accumulating merit, because especially in the West, many people, they're all interested in study, all interested in meditation, but when it comes to preliminary practices, not much interest. But yeah, if you just, basically, if you want to get just a mere understanding, fine, no problem. But if you want to get the realizations, then you really have to think. If you want to meditate for years and years and years and without much progress, that's one thing. But if you want to meditate for years and get some progress, then you have to engage in preliminary practices and purifying the mind, accumulation of merit. That's quite clear. In a traditional system, in the monasteries and nunneries in Tibet, for example, 2/3 of one's activity is spent in accumulation of merit and purifying the mind, and 1/3 is spent on study and contemplation. So that's quite clear that the division into the aspect of purifying the mind, accumulation of merit, is quite significant. So it's very important, because we're all interested in study and meditation, but if you don't create the right courses, then it's just climbing a mountain without hands. You can get there, but it's very, very difficult. So that if you prepare your mind well, then things go much smoother and much quicker. You know, that's kind of why it's very important. And also, we see Atisha being such an incredible, accomplished master, but still making mandala offerings every day. That's quite clear. And when Neljo Wanjuk, one of his main disciples, who was always in retreat, when I think Dun Trompa went to see him and his mandala set was full of dust, and then he said, "Oh," and then he said, "Yeah, why are you not making mandala?" He said, "Yeah, I'm meditating a lot." And then he said, "Oh, but Atisha does mandalas every day, and I think his realizations are a bit more than the ones you have." He has high realizations than you have, you know. So it's pretty clear. You know, when I went to see Gang Tirmiche, for example, the head of the Geluk tradition in Serra, he always going to see him, because always just stopping, put a mandala on the side and meeting people. You know, it's quite clear that there's a very important aspect of accumulation of merit. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche put so much emphasis on these aspects of preliminary practices. For those who know Discovering Buddhism, then, you know, it's kind of the list of suggested and required practices is quite long, and people think, oh, it's very long, oh, but it's just Rinpoche's skillful means, because if you really want to get the realizations, then you have to put some effort in that direction. If it's just study and talking about it, then of course maybe no need, but if you want to get some experience of the path, then it's very important, you know. Yeah. So same here, the author of this text, Sachen Kunga Nyingpo, he was in retreat for several months, right, before he saw Manjushri. So that's kind of quite clear that there's a great need to spend some time in retreat, or take long weekends off, or weeks, or whatsoever, and contemplate these things together with a combination of accumulation of merit and purifying the mind. Otherwise, there's no real experience, you know? And not just no real experience, but also the imprints are not very stable. You know, if you really want to continue your future lifetimes, you need very stable imprints, and those stable imprints, they come from meditation, right? We say the wisdom from meditation, the wisdom from contemplation, and the wisdom from hearing. You know, so the one wisdom from meditation is the most stable one. Yeah, so that's, you get an insight, and then you concentrate on the insight, then that imprint becomes very strong. If you just contemplate a little bit, of course, imprints are there, but you know, it's not as solid, as stable, and profound as actually contemplating, come to a conclusion, focus on that conclusion for some time. Then you put really stable imprints in the mind. So that's quite important to engage in, you know. Yeah. So if you invest in preliminary practices, then also the view is much easier, you know. Yeah. And then of course, then you combine that, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, with making supplications to the guru, one with deity, and having strong faith, and then based on that combination, read the great texts, then you accomplish something. You know, that's very clear. You know, that's kind of and we see that throughout all the traditions, right? There was Nyingma, Kagyu, Sagya here, or Geluk, you know, that aspect of preliminary practices combined with Lamrim seems to be very essential. Even if you, for example, study Nyingma Pato Rinpoche's The Words of My Perfect Teacher, all the preliminaries are within the Lamrim, right? So it's quite clear that's a lot of emphasis on those aspects. Yeah, because otherwise you can study as long as you like and contemplate as long as you like. And Lama Tsongkhapa did the same thing, and then he didn't get it, and asked Manjushri, "What should I do?" And then Manjushri told him, right? Yeah, accumulate merit, purify negative deeds, make supplications to the guru, and based on that threefold combination, study the great text and contemplate. Then you get somewhere. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of in relation with the last line, because emptiness, as we know, is not easy to understand, and although intellectually you might understand, but then when you sit down and meditate, then the object of refutation disappears, and then yeah, we mostly try to meditate emptiness, but actually our meditation is more on dependent origination, right? It's not really meditation on emptiness, you see. So that's kind of seems to be quite essential, you know, to really understand, the importance of these points in relation with emptiness, you know. Yeah, because most of you have studied emptiness quite a lot, but it's very important to combine it with preliminary practices in order to really move forward in one's understanding, but also in experience, right? That's quite important. Yeah, because because we see that otherwise it remains a bit weak. You know, our understanding of emptiness remains a bit weak. You know, when you say the meditation, you have a little bit experience of emptiness, then you come out of it and everything appears as before. It's kind of, it's true, right? But we shouldn't get discouraged, because that's the other thing, the positive. The good news is that, you know, Arya Deva said very clearly, those who have interest in emptiness and those who doubt it, if there's a self or not, those who have doubt, you know, and then think, oh, maybe there's an inherent self, maybe not, probably not. This kind of doubt is a sign of having accumulated a huge amount of merit. So that's right where we are, right? Most of us have interest in emptiness, and that's a very good sign of merit, because people without merit, they don't doubt it even. That's what Arya Deva says. You know? Yeah. So there's most people, if you walk, I don't know, in New York, there was also pubs and things like that. You could, or supermarkets, I suppose. And you just walk and you start a conversation with a person, and if you mention emptiness, they think you're completely crazy. Yeah. Yeah. So most people just don't have the merit to even think about it. So there's, in one way, we're very fortunate, you know, to have this connection and the merit, you know. And then Arya Deva also says, and then if you contemplate it a little bit, and even if you have doubt, that starts to shake samsara, because that's the first step. We first have to question it, right? Does the I exist the way it appears? That's the first step, you know, and then analyze and then see how does it appear, and then see, can you find it the way it appears? And then you come to a conclusion, you cannot find it in the body, you can find it in the mind. It's not there. Yeah, so that's kind of what we try to come towards to. And then we move forward. And you do that for 1 or 2, or let's say a few dozens of lifetimes, and then things become stable. That's quite clear. You know, we don't expect in 1 year, 1 lifetime you get it all. That's also a kind of very vast vision we need. You know, you contemplate these things, you meditate on the best way you do, you make strong prayers, you engage in preliminary practices, and you do that for a few lifetimes, and then things will become very, very stable. And then you move forward. Yeah, because the more stable contemplations you have, that eventually develops in a realization, right? That's true for the whole Lamrim. Yeah. Realizations don't come like all of a sudden. I mean, we read these biographies of the great masters of the past, and through the blessing of the guru, they get an insight. But that does not mean without having trained in previous lifetimes, right? That's quite clear. Same with Sachen Kunga Nyingpo, the author of this text, you know, was an incarnation of a person who over many lifetimes matured his mind into the Lamrim and the Sakya, also the part and the result teachings, right? So that's quite clear. But then if we follow the same direction, if we just keep going, put in this in our mind, keep going, and you do that for a few lifetimes, then things become stable. And then you meet the same teachers again, and then things go quick. You see, that's kind of the long-term vision we should get, just to keep going, do our best, make strong prayers, and then eventually it will develop into realizations, right? Yeah, so that's kind of in relation with the last line, but yeah, all the 4 lines basically. If it's death and impermanence, or is suffering of samsara, or is bodhicitta, or is emptiness, you know, the more you put imprints, then one point of time it will actually become an experience and realization. Yeah, so that's maybe we stop there then, because we only have 2 hours. So if there's any questions, then we can look at it.
If you have any questions, you can just unmute yourself or raise your digital hand or real hand.
I have a question.
Good afternoon, Sachen Geshe Namdak. The question I had was the vision of Sachen Nyingpo. Was it his vision from merit of former lifetimes, or is it a kind of terma? Is it a kind of treasure?
I mean, there's different visions in the sense of you can have it like a dream, or in a dream, for example, or you can have a vision of mental consciousness, or you can have a vision that actually Manjushri appeared in front, like sensory perception, that the ways we see each other, for example. So I don't know exactly. I didn't find a clear presentation what of those 3 it actually was, you know. But it could be similar to Lama Tsongkhapa, who had this vision like a direct perception, right? Yeah, because he was very young at that time, right? So then that might be the case, but I haven't found a clear aspect of that. Yeah, so it's not really a terma that has been hidden and he found it. It's just a direct kind of aspect in this way of yeah, either of those visions, probably most likely as Lama Tsongkhapa had, it's just a direct vision, like we see each other with our eye consciousness, right? Yeah. But I'm not sure about that. I didn't see any clarity about which of those three.
Venerable Drolma, I think you had a question.
It's very similar to what Gabrielle was just asking.
Yeah.
When the Buddhists help us, is it possible for us to get insights from them?
Yeah, I mean, when they help us, or when they bestow blessings, or when the Guru bestows blessings, that's what it is. The blessing is producing the insight, or helping us to produce the insight, right? So they cannot really give their insight to us, but they can work with our mind who has already some understanding, and then bestow a particular blessing. And because of that blessing, this understanding becomes a bit stronger, or we get some experience. So if there's nothing from our side, then they cannot do much. They cannot go to a person on the street and let them realize emptiness. That's not possible, right? The Buddhas still have to walk within cause and effect and within the karma of sentient beings, right? So then if there's a person who has matured his or her mind over many lifetimes, they can do much more. Because then by seeing what's possible or showing a particular vision, then they know, oh, this person practiced this deity for many lifetimes. And in combination with this deity, this person contemplated emptiness or bodhicitta, and then showing that deity, that by itself can produce a kind of insight or experience or realization. But if there's no homework done in previous lifetimes, it will not produce this insight or realization, right? It's kind of, yeah, that's quite clear. The Buddha said, I cannot wash away your sins, I cannot take away your suffering, or give my realization to you, but I can show you how to do it, right? That's very similar. But it's true. I mean, if you look, for example, in the visions of the great fifth Dalai Lama, right, then most of those visions were during a talk offering or something like that, when there's a very strong purification with pure samaya, and then together with prayers and strong faith, then things happen, so that's a combination of faith from the practitioner as well as imprints of previous habituations to study and practice, and then combination with the ritual, which is often composed by a master of the lineage who had these kind of visions also before, and then all that combination with strong faith, it can happen that the mind just transforms. Or we feel sometimes when you go to Bodh Gaya or you're close to Lama Zopa Rinpoche or His Holiness Dalai Lama, it's very easy to think about bodhicitta and emptiness if you're close by and you just sit there for some time, right? So that's the power of the object. Definitely there's something there, but also from our side, if you don't put effort, then it doesn't move the mind, right? So that's kind of the combination should be there, because otherwise the Buddhas cannot bestow blessings or insights just like that. It's not that easy.
So it isn't always just through our sense perceptions, like I get the teachings and then it's my own mind. It can also be the blessings are also in my mental consciousness. Yeah,
of course. The blessings mostly come to the mental consciousness, right?
Okay.
But with these visions, you can have a dream of a deity, or a dream of a teacher who teaches you, or you can have, and that's, you can see the dream itself is not as trustworthy as you actually have a mental vision in the waking state, right? And even more than that is kind of a physical appearance in the waking state. So that's kind of different types of vision which produce kind of, depends on the purity of the mind of the practitioner, of course, right? And that will produce different types of blessings, right? And that blessing, because blessing in Tibetan jin means magnificent, right? Lap means transformation. So that's what happens. You transform your mind in something magnificent, or some insight, so to say. So that's true with holy objects, or you go to a holy place like Bodh Gaya or some other pilgrimage sites you have a karmic connection with. When you sit there and contemplate the things the meditator in that place meditate upon, it can produce a very strong kind of experience in the mind, right? For example, when Kandala Lama Zopa Rinpoche told me when I came back from Marathika in eastern Tibet. He said when Kandala was there recently, he said it was 2 years ago. Then she was there, and because of the blessing of the place and because of her pure mind, she saw, Buddha Amitayas for 2 weeks, right? So that means that we just see a rock. But if you have a pure mind and you have faith, then you see other things, you see. So the other things are there. There are Buddhas there, but because our mind is still lacks the purity, we cannot really see, you see. So that's kind of but when the mind becomes pure and then combined with faith and particular prayers and meditations, then there can be an appearance or a feeling or a sign, or depends on how the person is developed, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Noah, you had a question?
Thank you, Venerable. I actually wanted to hear you say the 4 lines in Tibetan as a imprint.
I haven't. I don't know if I received this transmission. I didn't have time to check. So yeah, then there's no point in reading it in Tibetan. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, no more questions then? Okay, then yeah, thank you very much for hosting, Shini, and for all people for the interest. And then yeah, see you soon, somewhere, someplace, sometime. Yeah. So let's dedicate then the do we have dedication prayers or not? What do we have? Mandala, no need. Just go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So we can do these prayers. Dagi Jin. So yeah, try to dedicate then the merits we discussed today, and contemplating, think about the things of the 4 points of the practice of death and impermanence, or samsaric suffering, bodhicitta, emptiness, and dedicate the whole Lam Rim, basically, and try to dedicate in a way to accomplish those realizations and all sentient beings. And for the long and healthy life of precious gurus, particularly so as Dalai Lama and Swift Return Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and also for to be without obstacles and all to meet perfect qualified guru in our future lifetimes to progress stage of our life. Yeah. Dagi Jine Sabe Gewa Di Tendan Doa Gundan Kamben Keba Jason Lozan Daba Yi Tembe Ningbo Rindu Selje Shu Gare Rawe Korwe Zingam So Pendan Dewa Malu Jongwe Chenre Zegwan Tenzin Gyaso Yi Jabe Jite Badu Tengyu Ji. That's Rinpoche's long night prayer, or you don't have the other one? Yeah, so then if you don't have, then yeah, maybe just okay, yeah, perfect. Pearl's teacher and assembly of children of victorious ones, Sravakas, Pracheka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and son, along with the lineage masters, are object of refuge of infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue of good and of prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you ward a more of patience that is never discouraged. Inkabro Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, sole gateway to always all benefits happiness emerge, and for the model living beings you certainly parted the peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the oceans of the 3 jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam the glory of fortunate disciples. Janjo Samjo Rinpoche Magye Panang Gyuchi Gyeba Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gonde Belwa Goni Tawa Rinpoche Magye Panang Gyuchi Gyeba Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gonde Belwa Show. In the last verse, Gyewa Gunde Yanda Lama Dan Dame Chugi Bela Longyu Sada lamgi yunda razon doje changi go banyo to sho. Okay, thank you so much. Enjoy, though in the US, enjoy the rest of your day, as we say. Yeah, in Europe, we
Thank
try to
you.
enjoy the rest of our evening. Okay.
Thank you so much, Geshe-la, for
Okay,
making
thank you.
time for us.
Yeah.
Have a lovely evening. Thank
Thank
you,
you so much
everyone.
for organizing. Okay, then. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.